Commander Jack Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Earth spaceship Intrepid his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the view screen. The alien vessel hung there against the black of space, its smooth blue-green hull shaped like a giant teardrop. It was at least 3 times the size of the Intrepid and it glowed with soft light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Any response to our messages?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. Lisa, the communications officer, shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir. I sent our greeting package on all frequencies." This was the moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the stars. First contact. Real aliens. Not the little green men from old movies, but actual beings from another world. The bridge was quiet. No one wanted to speak. No one even wanted to breathe too loud. The 6 crew members just watched and waited. Then it happened. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission." Lisa's fingers flew across her console. It's in English." Jack's eyebrows shot up. "Put it on speakers." A smooth, slightly musical voice filled the bridge. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Council, a community of spacefaring species. We have been observing your world for some time. We believe you are now ready to join us among the stars." Jack looked at his second-in-command, Ben, whose mouth hung open in shock. "They've been watching us," Ben whispered. Jack leaned forward. "This is Commander Jack Mitchell of the Earth exploration vessel Intrepid *. We're honored by your greeting. We come in peace and friendship." "As do we," the voice replied. "With your permission, we would like to send a small delegation to your ship to meet in person. We have much to discuss." After getting approval from Earth Command, Jack agreed. Within the hour, a small shuttle left the alien ship and docked with the Intrepid *. Jack and his team waited in the meeting room. The air felt thick with tension. When the door finally slid open, Jack had to stop himself from gasping. The alien that stepped through was tall and slender, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like mother of pearl. Its head was oval-shaped with large, deep purple eyes that seemed too big for its face. It wore a simple silver robe that flowed around its body like water. "I am Ambassador Trell," the alien said, its mouth not moving. The words seemed to form directly in Jack's mind. "It is an honor to meet you face to face, Commander Mitchell." 2 more aliens followed Trell into the room, similar in appearance but wearing blue robes instead of silver. Jack stepped forward and extended his hand, then realized the gesture might mean nothing to these beings. But to his surprise, Trell reached out with one of its 4 hands and gently touched Jack's. "We have studied your customs," Trell explained. "Though I must be careful, you are much stronger than you appear." The meeting lasted for hours. Trell explained that the Galactic Council included over 200 different intelligent species, all living and working together in peace. Earth was being invited to join this community. "We have been monitoring your progress for decades," Trell said. "Your technology has reached the point where you can travel beyond your solar system. Your society, while still divided in some ways, has largely moved beyond global conflicts. You are ready. Why didn't you contact us sooner?" Jack asked. Trell's large eyes blinked slowly, partly because of our non-interference policies with developing worlds, but mostly because of fear. "Fear of us?" Jack couldn't hide his surprise. "Yes, Commander. You see, in our classification system, Earth is what we call a death world, a planet so harsh and dangerous that most sentient species would perish there within days or even hours." Jack looked confused. "Earth doesn't seem that bad to us." "Of course not. You evolved there. Your body's adapted to its crushing gravity, its extreme temperature variations, its atmospheric pressure, and its countless biological hazards. The fact that intelligent life emerged on such a planet is considered remarkable." Trell's eyes seemed to grow even larger. "Do you know that you could survive on almost 60% of the inhabited worlds in our coalition without any protection? While most of our member species would die on Earth without special suits or environmental chambers, Jack sat back in his chair, trying to process this information. So we're, what? The tough guys of the galaxy. 6 months after first contact, Jack Mitchell led a small team of humans through the docking bay of the massive galactic hub. The space station was bigger than anything humans had ever built, a spinning wheel of metal and lights that housed representatives from over 200 alien species. Jack walked slowly, trying not to show how uncomfortable he felt. Ever since they had arrived, aliens moved out of their way, staring with wide eyes, or whatever passed for eyes among their species. Some even pressed themselves against walls when the humans walked by. "I feel like a monster," whispered Dr. Ellie Reed, the team's scientist who studied alien life. She was a short woman with dark curly hair and kind eyes. "We're not monsters," Jack said firmly. "We're just different." Major Tom Wells, a broad-shouldered man with short gray hair, walked on Jack's other side. "Different is an understatement. Did you see that four-armed fellow nearly faint when I helped him pick up his dropped bag?" They had learned quickly that most aliens found humans terrifyingly strong. What felt like a gentle touch to a human could bruise an alien's delicate skin. Even speaking too loudly could hurt the sensitive hearing of some species. Ambassador Trell waited for them at the end of the hallway, all four of his arms raised in greeting. "My friends, welcome to your new quarters. I hope you find them comfortable." The rooms were large and filled with furniture made specifically for humans. The gravity had been adjusted to match Earth's, and the air was filtered to remove chemicals that might harm human lungs. "The council meeting begins in 3 hours," Trell said. "Until then, please rest." But rest was the last thing on Ellie's mind. As soon as Trell left, she turned to Jack with excitement in her eyes. "Commander, I need to go to the medical center. They've agreed to let me study alien physiology." Jack nodded. "Take Wells with you. No one goes anywhere alone, remember." The medical center was a marvel of technology. Ellie moved from display to display, her eyes wide with wonder. Holographic images showed the internal structures of dozens of alien species. "It's amazing," she said to Wells, who looked bored. "Most of these species evolved on worlds with less gravity than Earth. Their bones are lighter, their muscles less dense. And look at this. Their immune systems are so simple compared to ours." Wells grunted. "Makes sense. If their planets don't have many diseases, they wouldn't need complex immune systems." A blue-skinned alien doctor approached them cautiously. "You are the human scientist?" he asked Ellie. "Yes, Dr. Ellie Reed. This is Major Wells." The alien bowed slightly. "I am Dr. Moole. It is an honor to meet real Deathworlders. Would you permit me to scan you? Your biology is fascinating to us." Ellie agreed eagerly. She stood still while Dr. Moole waved a small device over her body. Numbers and symbols flashed on a nearby screen. "Remarkable," Moole whispered. "Your bone density is 3 times that of most council species. Your muscle fibers are extraordinarily efficient. And your immune system." He made a sound like wind chimes, which Ellie had learned was an expression of surprise. "It would destroy most mild infections within hours." Wells stepped forward. "What about our weaknesses? Surely we must have some compared to you folks." Moole tilted his head. "Your lifespans are shorter than many species, and your reproductive cycle is quite inefficient. But physically, you are like living tanks compared to most of us." Meanwhile, Jack had gone to meet with the Council's technology experts. He watched as they demonstrated engines that could bend space, weapons that could disable electronics without harming living beings, and medical devices that could heal injuries in seconds. "Your technology is incredible," Jack said to the chief engineer, a small insect-like being named Zik. "But I notice you don't have much in the way of physical protection. No armor or combat suits." Zik's antennae twitched. "Why would we need such things? All civilized species resolve conflicts through negotiation, not physical confrontation." Jack nodded slowly. "What about ships?" Do you have warships? We have defensive vessels, yes, but they mainly deal with natural threats like asteroids or solar flares. Later, the three humans met in their quarters to share what they had learned. They're so advanced, Ellie said excitedly, but also so fragile. Most of them evolved on gentle worlds with minimal environmental pressures. Wells nodded grimly. And they have no concept of warfare as we know it. Their defensive capabilities are impressive against natural threats, but not against deliberate attacks. The emergency alarm woke Jack in the middle of the night. A harsh red light flashed in his quarters on the galactic hub. He jumped out of bed, threw on his uniform, and rushed to the command center where he found Ellie and Wells already waiting with Ambassador Trell and several high-ranking council officials. What's happening? Jack asked. Elder Zol, the oldest and most respected council member, turned to face him. Zol looked almost like a tall, thin human except for his silver skin and entirely black eyes. We have lost contact with another outpost, Zol said, his voice heavy with worry. The third one this month. A large screen showed a small space station near the edge of council space. The image was frozen, showing normal operations. Then it jumped to static. This is the last transmission we received, Trell explained. After that, nothing. How many people were there? Ellie asked. 57 individuals from 12 different species, said Vix, a small reptilian alien who worked with data. Her scales shimmered with a soft blue light as she spoke. Just like the other attacks, there were no distress calls, no warnings, just sudden silence. Jack crossed his arms. And you still have no idea what's causing this. Trell's four hands made a complicated gesture that Jack had learned meant deep concern. We have only one piece of evidence, a few seconds of security footage from the second attack. The screen changed to show a poorly lit corridor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then dark shapes moved through the hall with shocking speed. They were too blurry to make out clearly, but Jack could see they moved on two legs and had roughly humanoid forms. Those are people, Wells said, leaning forward, or something very similar. Yes, Zol agreed. And they move with great strength and speed. Our analysts believe they might be. He hesitated. They might be what? Jack prompted. Deathworlders, Trell finished. Like you. The room fell silent. Jack felt the weight of everyone's stares. That's impossible, he said firmly. All humans are accounted for. We're the only Deathworlders in the council. The only ones we know of, Vix corrected. The galaxy is vast. There could be others. Elder Zol raised his hand for quiet. This is why we've called you here, Commander Mitchell. The council has a request. We believe that whatever is attacking our outposts comes from a harsh world like yours. Normal council security forces are not equipped to face such threats. Jack understood immediately. You want us to investigate? Yes, Zol nodded. Only Deathworlders might stand a chance against whatever is causing this destruction. Jack looked at Ellie and Wells, who both nodded slightly. We'll help, but we'll need a ship and information about the attacks. You shall have it, Trell said. The Council's fastest scout ship will be prepared for you. Vix will join you as our data specialist, and I will come as well to help with any diplomatic matters that arise. 3 days later, Jack stood on the bridge of the scout ship Swift Wind as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the location of the most recent attack. The ship was elegant and fast, but Jack noted it had almost no weapons or armor. Council races really didn't build for combat. The outpost floated silently in space, its lights off, rotating slowly. Any life signs? Jack asked. Alex Foster, the team's engineer, a tall woman with short blonde hair, checked the sensors. Nothing. It's completely dead. We should dock and investigate, Wells suggested, checking his sidearm. The council had been shocked when the humans insisted on bringing weapons, but had reluctantly agreed. I'll stay with the ship, Vix said, her scales turning a pale yellow that indicated fear. My species is particularly fragile, even by Council standards. Trell, however, insisted on joining the boarding party. I have more experience with Council technology. I may see things you would miss. They docked carefully and entered the station through the main airlock. The gravity was off, and they floated through dark corridors, lit only by their flashlights. The air was thin but breathable. "Where is everyone?" Ellie whispered, looking around nervously. "No bodies," Wells noted, his voice grim. "That's strange for an attack." They made their way to the command center, finding it empty like everywhere else. Foster went to work on the computers. "Most systems are fried," she reported, "but I might be able to recover some data." After several minutes of work, she managed to bring up the station's security feed. They watched in silence as the recording showed normal station operations, then dark shapes moving through the corridors with frightening speed. The station crew didn't even have time to fight back or send distress signals. They were simply overwhelmed. The Swift-Wind dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Craxus system. Jack and his team gathered on the bridge, watching the main screen as the ship's sensors scanned the planet below. "That doesn't look uninhabitable to me," Foster said, studying the readings. "High gravity, dense atmosphere with lots of oxygen, extreme temperature variations, and signs of complex life forms. It's harsh, but it's a lot like Earth," Ellie finished. "Maybe a bit more extreme, but not by much." Trell's skin had taken on a pale color that Jack had learned meant fear. By Council standards, this is an absolute nightmare of a world. The gravity alone would crush most of our species. Vix was checking historical records on her datapad. Craxus was surveyed over 300 years ago and classified as uninhabitable. There's no record of any follow-up missions. Jack looked at the planet thoughtfully. "Yet someone left that star chart pointing us here. I think it's time we took a closer look." They prepared for the mission carefully. While the humans needed only basic environmental suits to handle Craxus' slightly more dangerous atmosphere, Trell required a full support exoskeleton just to move in the higher gravity. "Are you sure you want to come?" Jack asked the ambassador as they prepared to board the landing craft. "I must," Trell said, his voice firm despite his obvious fear. "This is Council business." Vic stayed behind to monitor from orbit and maintain contact with the Council. The landing craft shook violently as it descended through the thick atmosphere. When they finally touched down on a flat plain near what looked like ruins, the humans felt the increased gravity immediately. It wasn't crushing, but it made every movement require more effort. 1.3 times Earth gravity, Foster reported, checking her instruments. "We can handle it, but it'll be tiring." Trell moved awkwardly in his exoskeleton. "This is difficult," he admitted. "I feel like I'm carrying a mountain." They stepped out onto the surface. The sky was a deep purple color, with 2 small moons visible despite the daylight. The landscape was rocky and barren near their landing site, but in the distance, they could see what looked like a forest of tall, spiny plants. "Temperature is 38 degrees Celsius, Ellie said. "Hot, but not unbearable." "Those ruins are about half a kilometer east," Wells said, pointing to a cluster of structures partially hidden by rocks. "That's our best bet." They moved slowly due to the gravity and Trell's limitations. Jack noticed that despite the harsh conditions, he and his human teammates were adapting quickly. Their bodies were built for survival, able to adjust to challenges that would kill most aliens. As they approached the ruins, Jack felt a growing sense that they were being watched. He signaled Wells, who nodded slightly and kept his hand near his weapon. The ruins were clearly artificial, the remains of some kind of outpost or small settlement. The structures were made of a dark, metal-like material that showed little sign of corrosion despite their apparent age. "These buildings are designed for beings about our size," Foster observed. "Whoever built this was roughly human-proportioned." Ellie was examining markings on one of the walls. "These symbols, they're not like anything in the Council database." Jack moved deeper into the ruins and found what appeared to be a control room. Most of the equipment was damaged or dead, but one console still had a faint glow. "Foster," he called, "see if you can get anything from this." While Foster worked on the console, Ellie discovered something in another room. "Jack, you need to see this." She led him to what looked like a laboratory. Inside were preserved specimens in clear containers, plants, small creatures, and biological samples. But what caught Jack's attention was a display case containing what appeared to be body armor, sized for a humanoid slightly larger than a human. "This is incredible," Ellie said, her voice full of excitement. "Based on these samples, I can already tell that life on this planet evolved to be incredibly resilient. The cellular structures show adaptations to radiation, extreme temperatures, and toxins that make Earth organisms look fragile by comparison." "Commander," Foster's voice came over their comms. "I got something from the console. It's a log entry, I think." The system translated it automatically. They gathered around the console, where Foster had managed to activate a recording. A holographic image appeared, a humanoid figure with thick, armor-like skin, ridged features, and eyes adapted for the planet's light conditions. When it spoke, the translation came through their comms. Back at the Galactic Hub, Jack stood before the council chamber, his face set in a hard expression. Behind him stood Ellie, Wells, and Foster. Ambassador Trell stood to the side, his four arms moving in nervous patterns. "You're telling me," Jack said, his voice carefully controlled, "that you knew about the Krev all along." Elder Zoll sat in the center chair of the huge circular chamber. Around him, 24 other council members watched silently. Some looked uncomfortable, others merely curious. "We did not know, as you suggest, Commander," Zoll said smoothly. "The events on Craxus happened 3 centuries ago. Few living council members were even born then. But it's in your records somewhere," Jack insisted. "The council tried to trap an entire species on their planet because you were afraid of them." Zoll's silver face showed no emotion. "Your rescue by the Kref Patrol was fortunate. However, their claims about council actions are surely exaggerated. The Krev were always aggressive. They were likely quarantined for the safety of all." The Krev Patrol had indeed let them go after tense negotiations. Commander Drav, the patrol leader, had removed his helmet to reveal a face with thick ridges and deep-set eyes adapted to Craxus' harsh light. He had told them the Krev were preparing to reveal themselves to the galaxy again after centuries of secret preparation. The conversation had been brief but illuminating. "Aggressive," Ellie stepped forward. "From what we saw, they developed technology to survive on their world, just like humans did on Earth. That doesn't make them aggressive." Zoll waved a dismissive hand. "This matter is closed, Commander. The Council will form a committee to investigate these old claims. In the meantime, we will increase security patrols to deal with these Krev raiders." Jack could see they weren't getting anywhere. "Very well, Elder. May we be excused." Outside the chamber, the humans gathered in a quiet corner. "They're hiding something," Wells said. "You can see it in their body language." Foster nodded. "We need to find out what really happened with the Krev. I don't trust the Council to investigate themselves." Jack looked thoughtful. "Foster, you're good with computers. Any chance you could access the restricted archives?" Foster smiled slowly. "Give me a few hours." Later that night, they gathered in Jack's quarters. Foster had brought a small data pad and looked excited despite her obvious tiredness. "It wasn't easy," she said. "Their security is good, but they never expected someone with human-level problem-solving skills to try breaking in." She placed the pad on the table and activated it. A holographic display showed ancient council records, dating back over 300 years. "It's worse than we thought," Foster said grimly. "The Council didn't just quarantine the Krev. They deliberately tried to prevent them from ever leaving their planet. The records showed that when the Council first discovered Craxus, they were terrified by its conditions, and even more by the beings who thrived there. The Krev were physically powerful, resilient, and had developed technology to survive their harsh world. The council took a vote, Foster explained, scrolling through the documents. They decided that letting Deathworlders into the galactic community was too dangerous, so they destroyed the Krev's early space technology and set up a blockade around their system. They expected the Krev to die out, or at least remain trapped forever. But the Krev survived, Ellie said. They'd rebuilt in secret, and now they're attacking council outposts. Wells added, "Can't say I blame them." Jack stood up and paced the room. "This changes everything. We need to tell someone about this." "Who?" Foster asked. The entire council was involved in the cover-up. Jack stopped pacing. Not the entire council. Ambassador Trell seemed genuinely shocked by what we found. They decided to share the information with Trell, who was horrified by the revelation. "This goes against everything the council claims to stand for," Trell said, his skin turning a deep shade of blue that indicated shame. "Peaceful cooperation, mutual respect. It was all lies." "Maybe not lies," Jack said carefully. "Maybe just convenient truths that didn't apply to species you feared." Jack paced in the small room where he and his team were being held. It had been 2 days since Elder Zol had revealed the council's plans. 2 days of waiting, watching guards outside their door, feeling the growing tension throughout the galactic hub. "We need to get out of here," Wells said, checking the sealed door for the 100th time. "The longer we wait, the worse things get." Ellie sat at a small table, studying data on a pad they had been allowed to keep. "The Krev attacks are increasing. 3 more outposts hit yesterday. The council fleet is mobilizing." Foster was lying on her back beneath a ventilation panel, quietly working on the circuitry. "Almost got it," she whispered. Jack nodded. Their human strength and ingenuity had once again given them an advantage the council hadn't anticipated. The guards outside were from a low-gravity species, physically no match for humans. The room's systems weren't designed to hold prisoners with human-level problem-solving skills. "Even if we escape, what's the plan?" Helly asked. "We can't fight the entire council." "We don't need to fight them," Jack said. "We need to talk to the Krev. If we can get them to stop attacking long enough for negotiations, maybe we can prevent this war." Foster grinned as the panel came loose in her hands. "I've got access to the environmental controls. Give me 5 minutes to create a distraction." 5 minutes later, alarms blared throughout their section of the hub. The corridor outside filled with smoke as the ventilation system malfunctioned. When the guards opened the door to check on their prisoners, Wells moved with shocking speed, disabling both aliens with careful strikes that wouldn't cause permanent harm. "Let's move," Jack ordered, leading them through the smoke-filled corridor. They made their way to a communication center, avoiding patrols and using service passages. Once inside, Foster locked the door and went to work on the systems. "I can send a message to the Krev, but I need to know where," she said, fingers flying over the controls. "Try the coordinates we found on that star chart," Jack suggested. "It might not be their homeworld, but it could be a base." Foster nodded and composed a simple message. "Humans seek alliance with Krev. We face the same enemy. Meet us at these coordinates." She included the location of an abandoned mining station they had learned about during their time on the hub. "Message sent," Foster announced. "But they've detected us. Security is on the way." They fled the communication center just as Council security forces arrived. They fought their way to a small maintenance hangar where emergency shuttles were kept. "This isn't exactly built for comfort," Wells said as they squeezed into a shuttle designed for maintenance work. "Or speed." "It'll have to do," Jack replied, powering up the engines. They escaped the galactic hub amid confusion and alarms, setting course for the abandoned mining station. Behind them, the Council's fleet was mobilizing, but not to pursue them. The Krev had launched their largest attack yet on a major Council facility. The journey took 3 days in the slow maintenance shuttle. When they arrived at the mining station, they found it dark and seemingly abandoned. Are we too early? Ellie wondered as they docked with the station. Or they didn't get our message, Wells said grimly, checking his weapon. They entered the station carefully, moving through dark corridors lit only by their flashlights. The station had been abandoned years ago when the local asteroid belt was mined out. Dust floated in the zero gravity, creating ghostly patterns in their light beams. Movement ahead, Wells whispered, raising his weapon. 3 figures stepped into the light. They were Krev warriors in full armor, weapons drawn but not raised. Humans, the leader said, removing his helmet to reveal the now familiar ridged face. It was Commander Drav, the same Krev who had encountered them on Kraxus. You said you wanted an alliance. Why should we trust you? Jack stepped forward, hands empty and open. Because we're both Deathworlders. And because the Council plans to do to Earth what they did to Kraxus 300 years ago. Drav's eyes narrowed. You know about that. The galactic hub was in chaos. Emergency lights flashed throughout the massive station as thousands of aliens rushed to evacuation points. The Krev fleet had appeared without warning, dozens of powerful warships surrounding the hub in a display of force that had terrified the Council. But no attacks came. Instead, a message broadcast across all channels. The Krev demand justice and recognition. We call for an emergency session of the full Council. Human representatives must be present. In the Council chamber, Jack stood beside High Commander Lorne. Behind them were Ellie, Wells, Foster, Commander Drav, and to everyone's surprise, Ambassador Trell, who had chosen to stand with the humans. Elder Zoll and the Council members sat in stunned silence as Lorne placed a small device on the floor. It projected a hologram of Kraxus and Earth, rotating side by side. 300 years ago, Lorne began, her deep voice filling the chamber. The Council discovered my people. They found us strong, resilient, and capable. They found us frightening. Her eyes swept across the Council members, and so they decided to imprison us on our own world, to let us die slowly, forgotten by the galaxy. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many younger Council members looked shocked. But we survived, Lorne continued. We adapted. We evolved, just as humans did on their death world. She gestured to Jack. Now the Council plans to do to Earth what they did to Kraxus. This cycle of fear must end. Elder Zoll stood up. The Krev were dangerous, as these attacks have proven. The Council acted to protect. To protect yourselves from what you didn't understand, Jack interrupted. But look around you. The Krev fleet surrounds this station. If they wanted war, we wouldn't be talking right now. This simple truth silenced the chamber. Jack stepped forward. My people have a saying. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Deathworlders like humans, and the Krev evolved in harsh environments. It made us tough, yes. Resilient, yes. But it also taught us to value cooperation, to care for each other, to find solutions where others see only problems. Ellie joined him. Our biology may be stronger, but that doesn't make us monsters. Strength can protect as well as harm. Lorne nodded. We do not seek vengeance, though we have cause. We seek justice, recognition, and a place in this galaxy that our ancestors were denied. The debate raged for hours. Many Council members were horrified to learn of their predecessors' actions. Others remained fearful of the Deathworlders. But as the discussion continued, something remarkable happened. Other representatives began speaking up, sharing stories of their own worlds, not as harsh as Earth or Kraxus, perhaps, but not as gentle as the core worlds either. My species evolved on a world with extreme seasonal changes, said one furry representative. We're not Deathworlders, but we understand adaptation. Our homeworld has gravity 30% higher than Council standard, said another. We know something of physical strength. Slowly, the rigid categories began to break down. The galaxy wasn't simply divided between Deathworlders and others. There was a spectrum, a beautiful diversity of evolutionary paths. As the emergency session stretched into its second day, a new proposal emerged. Ambassador Trell, his four hands making elegant gestures of inclusion, presented it to the chamber. "We propose a new galactic accord," he announced, "one that recognizes the unique strengths and perspectives of all members, including those from harsh worlds. No species shall be imprisoned or restricted based solely on their evolutionary origin." Elder Zoll and the Old Guard resisted, but they were increasingly outnumbered. When the vote came, the new accord passed by a significant margin. The Krev would be recognized as a full member of the galactic community. Earth would remain free, and a new Deathworlder Advisory Committee would be established to guide policy on worlds with extreme conditions. As the council session ended, Jack found himself standing with Lorne and Drav, looking out a viewport at the stars. "You could have destroyed them," Jack said quietly. Lorne's ridged face showed what might have been a smile. "And proven them right about us." "No, the true victory was not in battle, but in this." She gestured to the chamber behind them, where council members were mingling with Krev representatives, their fear slowly turning to curiosity. "What happens now?" Jack asked. "Now comes the hard part," Drav said, "building trust where there has been fear." 6 months later, Jack stood on the bridge of a new ship, the Explorer. It was a joint human-Krev vessel, the first of its kind, built with technology from both worlds. Its mission was to investigate strange signals detected from the far side of the galaxy, signals that hinted at yet another civilization that might have evolved on a harsh world. Ellie, now the ship's chief scientist, joined him at the viewport. "Do you think we'll find more Deathworlders out there?" Jack smiled. "I'm counting on it. The galaxy is vast. We can't be the only ones who learn to thrive in difficult conditions." As the Explorer prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Jack thought about how far they had come. From Earth's first tentative steps into space to becoming bridge builders between worlds, from being feared for their strength to being valued for their perspective. The stars stretched into lines as the ship accelerated. Whatever awaited them in the distant reaches of the galaxy, they would face it together, humans, Krev, and who knew how many other species yet to be discovered, all of them shaped by their worlds, all of them with something unique to offer. They weren't the only Deathworlders after all. And somehow, that made the galaxy feel both larger and more like home.